let's make a start now on what I hope is going to be a session that tackles probably the most fundamental issue in the UK premium rate market, which is it now safe to return to using affiliate marketing in the UK after the issues of last year, the 10 emergency procedures, the £250,000 worth of fines, and from our experience of monitoring affiliate activity, a substantial reduction in the use of affiliate networks. So from my perspective, it's the big question is it safe to return, and how to make it safe enough to start to use affiliate networks again. So let's first of all introduce the panel. My name is Flynn from Empello. We specialize in compliance monitoring with a particular focus on monitoring affiliate consumer journeys. Bart.
Yeah, so I'm Bart, I'm from PhonePay, and we're working in the UK together with affiliates. So we're going to talk a bit about what's our opinion during this next hour.
I'm Mark Collins, I'm the head of regulatory development at PhonePay Plus, the regulator. So obviously I'm here to discuss what we've been doing and kind of how we can get affiliate marketing back into the UK safely and compliantly.
I'm Jonny Brown from SB7 Mobile. We've been promoting online for about 6-7 years now, and both co-reg and affiliate marketing.
I'm Brian Gilson from Zamano. We're an aggregator in UK and Ireland. We've run some direct-to-consumer stuff ourselves, and we have B2B clients as well. We've been using affiliates kind of consistently now for the last 3 years, and I'm the co-chair of the digital marketing working group with Eric.
And I'm Eric Feltin from Safari Mobile. We started out kind of as an L2. We're much more of an L1 now, so we have a range of clients who are using affiliate marketing to promote a range of products. And with Bryn, through the digital marketing working group, we kind of helped chair the development of the AIM guidance.
So the way we're going to structure this morning or this afternoon is Bryn and Eric are going to take us through, for those that are not familiar with the detail of the AIM Best Practice Guide, which is one of the outcomes from the issues of last year. Then we're going to ask Mark to respond as a regulator to its views on the AIM Best Practice Guide, and then we'll open it up more for discussions to pick Bart and Jonny's brains on what they're doing to make it safe, and open it up into a general discussion, if that makes sense to everybody. So Eric, do you want to take people through
Sure.
the best practice?
The digital marketing working groups, probably starting in about March, started drafting a document together, met a few times. PPP's position on it is that it's good guidance, but it's industry rather than PhonePay Plus guidance. Therefore, it's voluntary. You don't have to follow it. But it doesn't necessarily guarantee a way of operating compliantly within the 12th code, or soon the 13th code. But they did say it is likely to have a positive effect on a provider's ability to meet its regulatory obligations. So industry has come together and gotten guidance. It's not best practice, and it should help you with handle affiliate marketing, but it's not a get out of jail free card by any means. So the guidance for L2s, I would assume everybody knows the L1, L2 split. L1s being aggregators, L2s being responsible for the promotion, which is and the other aspects of the service. So fundamentally, the guidance for L2s is you should know who your digital marketing partners are. You should be clear in the contracts as far as what you want, what you don't want. You should actively be looking for digital marketing issues out there in the wild. You should clean up any messes that get made by affiliates, and you should share intelligence with others. So those are kind of the 5 principles to it. As far as knowing your partners, you perform due diligence on the parties you're contracting with, which we're all familiar with, because you know, as L1s and L2s, you have to do due diligence on other people in the chain. You need to assess what they do to control affiliate fraud. So are they aware that there is affiliate fraud, or they're not aware, or etc.? You know, what is their sophistication level? Assess their understanding of UK premium rate regulations, and then agree with them, what do you do if you suspect that something has gone wrong? So establish escalation routes. How do you call? What do you do? And then after you've kind of gone through this, kind of assess the risk of the partner. Do you have a partner who is, very knowledgeable of UK premium rate. They're very knowledgeable of affiliate marketing fraud. They've got fraud departments, etc. You can work closely with them, and they'll be helping you on the journey. Or are you going to be doing most of the work? And so, just kind of assess how much work you're going to have to do to keep everything under control. In your contracts, it's advised to be as clear as you can in your contracts. A lot of affiliate networks, Google AdWords, that's their contract, so you sign it or you don't do it. But you can, in placement orders and in other things, specify and clarify what it is you want to do. Or at least have a discussion with them and understand what it is that they're doing. So for example, you should explicitly list wherever you can, this is what we want you to do, this is what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to do typo squatting, we don't want you to do, such and so, but we are interested in banners, but we're going to do the banners ourselves and you can only use our banners, whatever it is. So just be very clear on what it is they're allowed to do and what it is they're not allowed to do. And you may even, depending upon the circumstances, then say, if we haven't specifically agreed to something, then you're not allowed to do it. This will help later on if a problem happens. So then also state in your contracts what happens if a fraud is detected or suspected, and try to assert your rights to withhold payments. So especially if you're clear on this is what I want you to do, and anything that I haven't listed I don't want you to do, and then there's some sort of fraud that might make it easier for you to withhold payment. The withholding payment is obviously important from a you don't want to fund criminals point of view. So it helps kind of the whole premium rate industry if there's no way of profiting as a affiliate, if there's no way of profiting from it because the payments get withheld before they go on. Then you need to actively look for issues. So monitor your affiliate advertising. Do it regularly, systematically, document it. Known entry routes is one thing, so that if you are buying redirects or if you're buying banner space on a specific website, then by all means visit that website periodically, take screenshots of it, show that your banners are being displayed correctly, etc. If you're in a blind network, and many affiliate networks are blind, Google AdWords is blind for that matter, then it makes sense to act as if you're a user and go and search out typical users searching for your products and see if you can find inappropriate ways of accessing your products. Again, you would want to do this regularly, systematically. You'd want to screenshot it. There may be advantages to having a third-party company do it so that there's independence to it. Second thing you should do is analyze your data. You'll be doing this anyways in order to manage your affiliate marketing campaigns. But look at conversion rates and ARPUs and complaints and refunds and go, you come into the office one Monday morning and it's like, gosh, hits are very, very high, but conversion rate's very low. Something's happened over the weekend. What is it? So in the same way you would do that, trying to maximize your affiliate marketing campaigns, do the same thing and kind of look for fraud. So that if a campaign is remarkably profitable, in the commercial world, that would be great. In the regulatory world, you just need to make sure that it's not remarkably profitable for the wrong reasons. And then watch out for unusual consumer complaints. With the customer services company that we work with, in their system, they flag a complaint, or a query, I should say. They flag a query if it's something unusual. If the person says something that, people have the dog ate my homework sort of excuses all the time, but sometimes they come up with something which is like, I was doing X, Y, and Z, and then this happened. You're like, oh, that's kind of strange. So have your customer services people flag that, and then you can put that into the monitoring and specifically look for it and see if you can replicate it. Then if things don't smell right, if you suspect that there might be fraud, then you might cap daily spending so you could keep it under control. You would probably dive into the data and try to isolate what the unusual flows are. You get a number of unusual consumer complaints. You might want to look up who was the affiliate network, who was the affiliate, have a conversation with the network, trying to figure out what they were doing. You might want to increase your monitoring, you might want to target your monitoring, and like I said, you might want to replicate these unusual complaints that you've had. Then if something happens, and it's inevitable that something will happen, then you need to clean up your messes. So capture evidence of the fraud, identify all of the affected users, block that affiliate marketing route with your own systems, contact the affiliate network, get them to block the routes, emphasizing all along that if this is fraudulent traffic, then contractually you can't pay for it, regulatory-wise you can't pay for it, etc. So that it's to everybody's advantage to stop doing this. Notify PhonePay Plus, post details on the AIM early warning system. If it's a hacked site, report to the site owners and say, look, your site's been hacked and it's redirecting to ours, so please stop that. Refund the affected users, and then watch out for this fraud in future. And when PhonePay Plus was reading through the document that the Digital Marketing Working Group worked on, this was one of the areas that they were most interested in. So it's not only, catching the fraud, obviously you've got to do that, but once it's caught, clean up the mess. If you clean up the mess responsibly, then that's a long way forward. Guidance for the L1s. The L1s are not in contact with the affiliate networks. They're not in contact with the affiliates. It's far, far more difficult for them to have visibility. Rather than having them reinvent the wheel and do everything that the L2 is doing, the L1s should just discuss with your L2s so that you know whether they're doing digital marketing, whether you're using affiliate marketing, know that they know who their partners are, that basically they've done the due diligence, assess the L2's level of understanding of the risks and of affiliate marketing and etc. so that you're comfortable that they know what they're doing. Review their monitoring to make sure that it looks like they're actually doing the live monitoring. They've got, they're looking at unusual complaints. And then if a mess does happen, help them ensure that it's cleaned up professionally and completely. So it's fairly obvious, but basically just, your job is not to replicate what the L2s are doing, but just make sure that the L2s seem to understand what they need to do and are able to do it and are doing it. And I think that's all we wanted to say on the best practice guide.
Thank you. Are there any questions on, not a debate, but are there any questions on the actual best practice document? Is everyone comfortable? Let's not discuss right now, is it good, is it bad, is it doable, is it too expensive? But does anyone have any questions about the specific tasks that are recommended? No, that's great. On the spot a bit, I'm afraid. The crunch question is, where an L2 can be seen to have followed best practice, not the signed document, where the L2 is seen to have done best practice. What is PhonePay Plus's view when the inevitable occasional mistake, but when the occasional affiliate fraud does happen and will happen?
Right. So I think Eric started off that nothing is kind of a panacea for all the ills. So I'll start off by saying that obviously even AIM's guidance itself, if I recall, states that about a third of the traffic going around on the web is fake. So I think, Jeremy, you're right. You are going to get things happening. People are always looking for a new way of doing something. What I think we would comment is that in a market that's obviously still developing, and it's developing quite fast, there are always going to be approaches that you haven't seen before. And so the reason I say that is because with any best practice, it is as good as what we knew about when we were writing it.
Yep.
I have to make a point as well, this is just very quickly, because I know that some people that attend telemedias in the past have got very upset about the idea that they should follow AIM guidance if they're not AIM members. I don't know if some people will remember this from kind of previous telemedias. We would look at this as being a really significant contribution. And so I think I can go a bit beyond what Eric suggested, that if you are following this, you are very, very significantly upping your game, basically. I think it's important to stress that it's not a tick box exercise. As I'm saying, things will change in a market like this all the time. There will be new techniques that people use, particularly if you're marketing using clients that are maybe 2 or 3 links down a chain. I think the important thing for us is that you do what's in the guidance, but you do it with sort of a constantly diligent approach. It's not about coming and saying, well, we ticked all these boxes, so that means we are now completely immune from any prosecution of any kind. It isn't that. There could be quite obvious problems that you're you're maybe not seeing because you're too busy ticking the boxes. In that case, we're going to look at things using the code, as we would always do, and we're going to make an assessment on a case-by-case basis using the code as to what you did and didn't do. So I think our position is that by following the AIM practice, you are significantly increasing consumer safety, maybe even greatly doing it, and I think you're making a significant contribution to protecting yourselves as you protect consumers. What we cannot say is that you will always be immune from any kind of breach of the code in following it. So hopefully, Jeremy, I've gone a little bit further than where it was.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to suggest is that you somehow get 100% immunity, because in a market that develops like this, and in a market where people are paid by conversion, I think this is the other important thing. That there are some parts of this market where, of course, if you're working for John Lewis or Marks and Spencer or something, you're being paid by traffic going to the website, you're paid by hit. You know? So some of the techniques that people perhaps use in other arenas are they're being paid by conversion. Their incentive is to get that conversion by hook or by crook.
Yes.
So, if you like, our incentive when we do this has got to be to make sure that people don't take advantage of that. I think a thing that I would stress, and I've talked with Eric about this, but I've talked with others about it as well, is it's not just what you do proactively, although that is a really big key to it. When you discover something, the really big thing is to clean up the mess and also not to pay people. And this is the point I would stress again and again, because I have heard this from people even now. We still get complaints about affiliate marketing, whether it be affiliate or co-registration, which obviously I don't want to touch on so much, because that's a slightly different thing we're discussing. But we still do get complaints about this, and not huge numbers, but very significant numbers of complaints about it. And what we still hear from people is, well, we did everything we could, and how can we possibly stop this because they're getting paid for what they do? Now, I think we all know in this room, don't we, that no matter how many links down the value chain somebody is, you can stop them from being paid. Some people don't pay out immediately anyway for affiliate. They wait kind of however long to do it, so you can stop what's going on. I realise, and everybody at the regulator realises, that the reason there are affiliate networks, the reason you go down the chain, is because they don't want you to see everyone they're subcontracting to. There is a business reason for that. We accept that. But you don't need to know the names of the people that are ultimately doing your affiliate marketing to be able to say, this company here, X or Y or Z or whichever one, they're clearly responsible for traffic that's a problem, don't pay them. You know? Now, if you don't pay people, then they're unlikely to do things. And that for us is one of the key things, that you take that kind of action straight away that you discover it. And it's not a case of wringing hands and saying, well, we did all these checks and they still somehow got around this, what are we to do? You know, that would be a key message I'd send out. I realise that there will be complications with all of this, but the earlier that you share those with PhonePay Plus, the earlier we can be working with you to establish what's happened and what you're doing.
Is it safe to share with you?
I think it's safe to share in that we look at everything on a case-by-case basis. Where somebody's done all that they could reasonably have done, and they've kept a really fresh, proactive view, they've not just ticked boxes, I think you've got to look at that and say, well, if somebody's done everything they could, you know, and this is a genuinely new technique that couldn't have been foreseen, you know, then is there any real fairness or proportionality in investigating?
Yes.
On the other hand, there are a lot of people that will share things that are techniques they could have known about and say we couldn't possibly have known about that. Now, as the regulator, we're not necessarily going to accept that, which is why I don't suggest that it's absolutely foolproof.
Right.
Just to follow the guide sort of tick box.
Yeah.
All right. Now, that's really all that I had to say kind of from the stage. I'm quite happy to talk with people all day about this, but the only thing that I would suggest is, while this greatly increases your chances of doing everything right, there are going to be situations where on a case-by-case basis we would still open an investigation.
Right.
All right. So I think the safety is
Sounds
greatly
like
increased. Yeah.
sounding like, therefore, watch. Be very careful, but there's no cast iron guarantees. I think it sounds like we just have to wait for precedents to be set. If people do this, well, let's ask Bart and Jonny, maybe Brian as well, how practical is implementing properly AIM best practice? Is it too expensive? Does it make the UK commercials impossible?
It is expensive. The cost of compliance has been soaring in recent years, and the fact that we've got in our sector a lot of smaller companies with fairly limited resource if you're looking at covering all your bases. However, this code is doable, but what we need, I think we need more from the regulator from our side, and to be on our side, to help us police this space, because we don't have the resource to do that. If we've made all the checks to go into the marketplace to check out each provider, and when you come across a potentially dodgy partner, they stick out a mile, so that you can go onto the first page of this, and you don't need to go any further, because you know if it kind of smells bad, it probably is bad. But we really do need, I think we need to up the cooperation with the regulator to make sure, and maybe with PhonePay Plus bringing in other agencies, because it's not a problem that just affects our sector, it affects anyone who's looking to do any form of marketing online.
Yes.
You know, they're exposed to this. And you know, we have rights to go and buy advertising, and we should be protected, but at the moment there's a feeling that, you know, we've done all we can to stop ourselves being mugged, but then when we do get mugged, we then get almost fined for being mugged.
Yes, indeed.
And so I think there's, in recent times, I think there's a sort of, since last year, I think there's an enhanced spirit of cooperation, but I think we can still do more
Yes.
and see, you know, what other agencies we can pull in.
Yeah. And in positive terms, Jonny, and I'm not suggesting we as a regulator would offer to do this ourselves, but is there a way of perhaps sharing the information about the people who smell bad?
Yeah, well, there's the early warning system, which is, okay, it's still in its early stages. I mean, are you talking about sharing it directly, or, I mean, there's already
I think
sort
what
of...
I'm doing is, I mean, you're right, the early warning system will make a very positive contribution to it. But I think what I'm hearing is that where you discover people who are obviously going to damage everybody's reputation, the quicker that everybody with the regulator knows about that, the better
You
it
did
will be.
discuss that in the AIM working group,
Yeah.
and the view was there's too many legal issues if we were to start to badmouth publicly companies. They could come after us for defamation.
But even are there particular characteristics? You see, Jonny, you talked about not needing to go further because something just smells wrong the minute you're there. Without then having to necessarily name or defame companies, is there a way of saying there are certain things that look bad? If you perhaps don't know this, this is what you need to be looking for. Are there characteristics we can give? And in that way, you're not saying don't do business with anyone, you're saying be very wary of anybody with these particular characteristics. Now that's an open question, I don't know the answer to that. You know?
Well, Mark, yes, I think you're right. You can say, here is a new technique which we don't like, or here's something which smelled, which doesn't smell right, and here's an example of it in the wild. And you don't take off the logo of the company. But it is a true example, and you're not saying that they're blacklisted, you're just saying, here's something which is problematic, and we've decided that we don't want to go down this route, and here's an example of what it looks like. So I think there are ways of kind of skirting it, but then there's different levels. It's not only your partner, but then the network, but then they get traffic from affiliates who get traffic from affiliates who get traffic from affiliates, and so sometimes it's 5 steps removed, 20 steps removed, but still if you can recognize it and screenshot it and say this is an example of bad practice.
Yeah.
Now, with something like that, it's very hard to block them because they change their name and they move around to different affiliate networks. But at least you can watch out for it. Now you know what to look for.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. It's the I call them nested journeys, where you've got an affiliate network nested under another affiliate network. That's where the fraudsters bury themselves quite deep, for obvious reasons. But from a monitoring perspective, we see we must do 500-600 consumer journeys from affiliate banners a week, maybe a bit more these days. If we see probably 1 in 500 is problematic now. 18 months ago, I would say 1 in 20 journeys was non-compliant. So I think the industry has done a bloody good job, considering, I think, frankly, the affiliates are cleverer than we are.
I think part of that is that 18 months ago everyone pulled out of the affiliate market. So you know, there's a few people going back in now on a very sort of, you know, toe in the water
Exactly.
to see how it goes.
But it's looking pretty safe. I mean, as I say, 1 in 500 is not bad.
Yeah, but what Jonny is saying, in our particular case, we're only running with direct traffic where we know that
Yes.
the first partners are the lowest risk traffic, which results in lower volumes and in the end less problems. So
What's your perspective, Bart, then on, are you prepared to open the tap up a bit more?
yeah, so the question that I have for Mark is, you mentioned that what we should reasonably be aware of, but how can we know what we need to be aware of from your perspective?
I think that this is one of the big what you end up talking about is that sort of idiotic phrase Donald Rumsfeld once
Yes,
used
I
about
was
the
thinking that,
the
exactly that.
unknown unknowns.
Unknown unknowns.
I think this is the issue is that what it more is, Bart, is we don't want to be in a position where we say, if you've ticked all these boxes, then if there's something else that's happened, because it wasn't something, because it wasn't a box we asked you to tick, you don't need to notice it. I think where it's obvious that you've kind of done all the checks that you might have done, and somebody has genuinely got a technique that no one's seen before, I think that is a very different
It's not a
case.
technique, Mark.
Sorry, what's that
It's a
technique?
rogue in a,
All right, sure.
it's a rogue in some network
Yeah.
3D has popped up one day.
Well, okay, yeah. But if somebody has managed to pop up where we didn't expect them, if somebody has got something that they're doing that it's a characteristic we haven't seen before. I think that's different from something that actually it might have been reasonable to know about. And you'd be surprised. I think the problem is that I'm in a room with people where a lot of people are really thinking this out in a great deal of detail, because these are actually the people who want to do it right. What we are still seeing is people who are coming along and saying, well, how could we have known about this? And we're saying, well, do you know what? It was glaring in front of you. Did it not occur to you as a business that you're getting magnificent traffic from over here? Yeah. Now, I realise that that's a cause for celebration, but as a business, surely you want to know either, is that traffic legitimate, in which case I want somebody to do me a lot more of that traffic, or there might be a reason for this that's not so good,
Indeed.
in which case I want to stop it. And you would be amazed that we're still getting this. You know? Even in a room full of people who are trying to sort of control this to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And so, Bart, that's what I'm really saying, is that if you're following the AIM guidance, you are making a very significant contribution to your own safety and that of consumers, because you're thinking about all the processes that you might need to go through. You're thinking about how to control things. If there's genuinely something that you couldn't have known, there's genuinely something you couldn't have known. What we do want, then, is just to reflect that and make sure everybody else knows about it.
It's
as
not
soon as we can
genuinely
control
known,
it.
is it? The issue isn't about knowing about a technique. It's did
capturing
you, at that moment in time,
Yeah, it's capturing
go to a particular consumer point at a certain time of day
Yeah,
where this rogue had swapped what he was doing with something else.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Well, Jeremy, there might be another way of looking at it, which is that, as I mentioned, PPP's biggest feedback on the digital marketing guidance was about the cleaning up the messes.
Yep.
And I think it kind of comes down to the fine and the track to breaches is the insult on top of the injury. And so we had a client recently who had an affiliate multiple levels deep, did some pretty horrendous stuff. We caught it very quickly. We told PhonePay Plus, we refunded everybody. There's still a lot of work now explaining to PhonePay Plus what we did, how we caught it. We caught it within a couple of hours. How did we refund everybody? How are we going to prevent it in the future? So hopefully this client is not going to get a breach letter, is not going to get a fine. So, we don't have the insult on top of the injury, but there's still a phenomenal amount of effort to clean it up. And this was caught within a couple of hours and stopped, and the person hasn't been paid. If you've had something that's run for a month and you haven't caught it, well, then you're going to have to do a lot more work explaining to PhonePay Plus why they shouldn't give you a track 2 breach letter. So I think you were talking about we're going to have to wait for precedences to see, and PhonePay Plus will have to start getting comfortable with the process so that if you get a routine heinous breach, but you catch it quickly, the affiliate isn't paid and everybody gets refunded, then it's fairly quick to solve.
Yeah.
That's the world I'd love to get to.
So what you're saying, Eric, is that if we can get to a sort of standard where we send information in case of a breach, available. If we can work with Phone Plus towards a document of some sort, that if we fill in all the blanks with all the right information and the proof, of course,
Yeah.
if that's
Yeah, I think it's that, and it's also this thing that Eric alluded to, Jeremy. It's, you monitor kind of for a living as well. And I think it's the difference, as you say, you cannot necessarily be everywhere that somebody's doing something at any time. But I think there's a big difference between discovering it within 24 hours and saying, right, we've got this now, here it is. And then coming along a month later and saying, oh, there's the most horrendous thing. There was all this money we made and we didn't realise. And it's only just now we found out that there's a problem.
I think the key word, therefore, people alluding to is proactive. So I think that's
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, Eric mentioned if you've got tracking tools that monitor your traffic in real time, if you've got a dodgy affiliate somewhere down the chain,
You'll see it.
you'll see it straight away.
Yeah.
And if you can't jump on that and as Eric says, clean up the mess, then really you shouldn't be in the game, to be fair. But it does bring another issue, is how far down that line do we, or are we expected to monitor, and how effectively can we, the further you go, as you know, the harder it is to find the source. So this is, it's kind of, you may not be able to answer the question, but where would you draw the line in saying, well, there's maybe 5 stages there that...
I think it's something. I think this is actually, it's almost the thing that I can't answer, but we continue to consider it. Because I think the problem is that when you go down to a certain level of affiliate marketing, it stops being what I would call a tree. You're not passing down and branching out so much as it's becoming a crisscross. Because actually some of the affiliates are actually then marketing with each other to go back. So you've got several different sort of flows, rather than being able to say, well, you start here, you go here, and then you're splitting off and splitting off. You've actually got
I think you're talking about an attribute of co-reg rather than blind affiliate networks.
Yes.
Co-reg, they do all
I think with
over the place.
coverage, there's a lot of different routes that necessarily go back. I think one of the things we'd be more interested to know is how many steps down the chain do you go for this to cease to be worth anybody's time? Because I realise that with affiliate marketing there is an extremely low sort of setup cost, if you like, and kind of on cost to it. And that's one of the reasons there can be this many links in the chain. But can you potentially go sort of hundreds of steps down the chain and still make some kind of money out of it? Or how many steps does it cease to actually be profitable and worth anybody's time to subcontract further?
It just depends where you're going to start from, really. I mean, if you go take, I don't know, typo squatting or something, you hit a page and you have a banner that's been placed on that page.
Yeah.
But the banner isn't misleading. Your lander's not misleading.
Yeah.
But if that page was set up to say not even look like the page it was looking to emulate, or that, say it was Google beginning with a 6 or something, passing off, is the user then being misled? If, it's like if you want to watch ITV and you miss the button, you hit channel 4, but then you see on channel 4, actually, there's a better program on there, I'll stick with this one. So is there, in that instance, is this maybe we start the debate, is this a point of misleading the user? Because surely at that stage they would just go, no, I didn't want this site, go back and type Google in properly. So, I mean, that's only, say, 3 steps away.
And then this is actually one that I've, some monitoring that PhonePay have given us recently, and this is one of the things that has come up. So I've bounced that back to Chris Bennett, and Chris he's not sure from what I can
Could
tell
you give us
yet.
a bit more flavor on that one, Brian?
Sorry, yeah, it was essentially typo squatting. So
Right.
any time that, when we started affiliate marketing, we were getting typo squat traffic, and straight away we got hit with, that's passing off as YouTube type stuff. And straight off, that's misleading, don't do it. And that's built into the...
Was it visually like YouTube?
It was, yeah, and this is 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's stitched into the code of practice, as one of the things to, don't allow typo squatting. But it's just recently come up that somebody's missed out Google, but it just goes straight onto an affiliate pre-lander that doesn't look anything like Google or is not trying to emulate it. So, and I discussed this with you last night, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's not misleading.
Yeah, it's not misleading. But again, I'd like to get that steer from PhonePay and then to be able to share it with...
I think that's to go back to Johnny's point, which I think links into yours, Mike. If you turn on, if you want ITV and you get channel 4, and it's obvious you've got channel 4, I think there's a different level from if you turn on, and it's like Channel 4's version of the X Factor,
Exactly.
and actually you think you're watching ITV for 20 odd
Exactly.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think there has to be different levels of granularity. And Brian, I can't comment on something individual that Chris is still considering.
No, not
but I would
expecting
say that much, that there are different levels always with these things.
Yeah, and I suppose just what we're looking for is kind of to be able to get a consistent message out
I
from
think
you
there
guys.
needs to be definitely needs to be a differentiation between typo squatting and passing off. And the
Yeah.
issue is passing
Yeah.
off, not typo
Yeah.
squatting.
I think also, obviously, if you find your banner on a typo squatting page, your IO agreement should actually forbid you being on there, and you can
Yeah.
rightly not pay for that traffic.
Yeah.
But it can get out there, and we monitor all the obvious typo squatting sites on a regular basis, and we have third-party companies that do that as well. But in those instances where one isn't passing off, and you find a banner on there that's that's compliant, and the step from there is compliant, there is a question whether that's actually misleading anybody.
There's another angle here, which is one, if the person by accident turns to Channel 4 and they meant to go to ITV and they like the program and they watch it, then they're not going to complain and there was no consumer harm. So there's kind of two tracks here of where did this case come from? Did it come from 40 people were complaining about the same thing and they felt misled? Or did the case come from somebody did monitoring and decided that this was misleading and therefore there was harm? And so it kind of comes back to the emergency procedures which were done last year. I think one of the things that got a lot of people's backs up was that there was no consumer harm, but there was an emergency procedure. So I think you're now in the area of, a lot of the guidance is, there has been harm. It's pretty clear that there's been harm. Have you cleaned it up? But then you're in a different world of, well, is this sharp practice? Is this sharp practice over the line? Is anybody being harmed about it? Is anybody complaining about it? Are you getting an unfair advantage or not? So I think that there's two aspects here, to kind of keep in mind. But I agree with your point, the difference between typo squatting and passing off. But I think this then comes into, this is kind of one of the dangers of monitoring, is then as you go through and you're looking for these unsavory journeys, deciding, well, okay, I feel a little bit uncomfortable about somebody typing in misspelling Google and ending up on my site, but is this really a problem or not? So, but I don't know what PhonePay Plus's view on that is, because the code says thou shalt not mislead. So, so I'm not sure how that works in practice.
Well, I think the only thing, I can't sort of say whether it does or doesn't mislead according to the code, not just at this moment kind of on this platform, but what I would say is there's different levels of granularity to something like that. If somebody's mistyping Google and they're ending up on your site, and your site's got all of the kind of stuff it needs, then the consumer's, it's irritating, and the consumer isn't where they want to be, and they've been misled into going there. But they've got sort of everything that they clearly need. They're less likely to make a purchase if all of your pricing information is as it should be and all of your service information. That's a very different proposition to being told you're on Facebook and actually enter this competition and it looks like Facebook's coloration and page layout and and font and all of this. Because the consumer actually genuinely believes at this point they're on Facebook. Now so what I suppose I'm saying is there's misleading and there's misleading. So with everything that we would look at, you always look not just at what the breach, whether there's a breach, but what the breach is, the strength of it. And I think the other point I would make before we move too far away from it is I can think of plenty of people in the room who have contacted us in the past and said, look, our charging platform, something's happened to it. And we've billed however many consumers by mistake, and we're going to refund them, and we're going to fix what's gone wrong. And as long as we know that, and we know that no profit is being made, that's not to say that there isn't a breach of our code. Of course, there is a technical breach of our code, and that you should not charge people. But we look at the situation that involves. If actually no lasting or lingering harm is occurring, I can think of plenty of occurrences, and probably some of the people in this room who have spoken to me where we haven't then taken that any further. Now, this is something that through increments we should be able to reach with affiliate marketing, but at the moment it is a fast developing market where we still are not quite sure of every single occurrence.
I don't see it as fast developing. I see this as people pulled back big time 18 months ago. 15 months ago. And really the question is, do people feel brave enough to step back in? How deep are you prepared to go back into the sea? If you're a coward, you stay out of the sea until you see somebody swim out a bit for 3 months. They don't get eaten by sharks, and then you go to join the water. But you've lost 3 months of opportunity. Who feels brave enough to at least go in up to their waists? So let's then have, I think, to the audience here. Let's get a temperature feel for how deep into the sea people are prepared to go at the moment. So maybe, Remote Games, do you want to comment?
We're Warren, believe obviously, and then we took a step back. But we're very much looking at it now, and this is one of the reasons for it, this debate. And from some of the affiliates that we've got in touch with, it does seem to be a different scenario than what we saw 18 months ago. I think some of the, Jonny, as you say, some of the issues that were very clear and very blatant, I think they've, from what we see, they've gone away.
So what's your
We're kind of
view?
watching.
Go up to
see
your
what's happening.
go up to your knees or up to your waist?
I think, everything goes well when we look to get back into that.
Right.
But as I say, I think some of the points we made today about, we're very nervous about something going wrong and then
Yes.
getting sort of 10 bricks down. And I think that's a real issue, really. That's the real.
I think it was one of the. I think Eric mentioned earlier that with any new campaign you should put caps on, so you limit your exposure
To any new affiliate in a network? Cap at an
Yeah, I
affiliate
mean
level,
you could
not in
yeah,
the network.
It depends if it's a new network, put
Yeah.
a cap on a network.
Yeah.
But whether it's CPL or CPA, you can still apply caps, and that's a good way of regulating any new partner. And then you can proceed, go up to your ankles, up to your knees, and I think it'd be reckless to dive straight in.
The other thing that I'd say is that the world's very diverse, and there are some affiliate networks who won't accept caps. They say, you either buy the traffic or your competitor will. So, do you want it? And so you then have to take a risk. And so I wouldn't want people to take away that, caps, then if you don't do caps, you've done something wrong. Because in some environments you can't have caps. In some environments you can have caps.
I disagree. I would actually say if a partner didn't want to apply a cap that was reasonable, then there's probably some dodgy reason behind that.
A lot of it is, they'll have a set pre-lander, and let's say they're using previous winners. They don't want to change the previous winners, and it's essentially a lot of them are lazy, I think.
Yeah.
And they don't want to kind of go, well, this is this company's previous winners, and I have to switch over to something else. If they can do a very generic page, they probably will be more amenable to doing it.
I think that the point is that caps are one way of controlling it. You can go in with an affiliate network with no caps, but then you should counterbalance it perhaps with more monitoring. You should counterbalance it with slower payment terms. You should counterbalance it with something. So all these things there's no combination which will protect you from PhonePay Plus, and therefore every combination is equally valid, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As long as at the end of the day, you can prove that you were able to clean up the consumer harm, and that it's not going to happen again. And if you go to a tribunal, the tribunal also looks at bringing the industry into disrepute. So as long as you can, whatever strategy you had, we're able to cover these things. So you don't want to use caps, that's fine. I know or you only want to use caps, that's fine. I know other people who don't use caps, but I think that what they're doing is safe enough.
One thing as well is affiliates will try and play providers off each other, and will say, well, Zamano will allow this, or SB7 will allow this, or Zamano will pay that. I think what's happened over the last 16 months, and probably one of the reasons, Jeremy, why you're not finding as many rogue customer journeys is because as a group we're talking and discussing things quite openly with each other. So it's a case that Jonny could pick up the phone to me and go, well, I think we've been shaken down here. Are you guys doing this? And if they find out that, as a group we all talk to each other, they're less likely to do anything. And I think what's happened as well is that there's kind of there's an acceptance from affiliates that in the UK market there's a line and you can't cross it. It's almost like
It kind of feels as though 18 months ago our industry was quite naive and it was severely hit by affiliate fraud.
Yeah.
It happened to be the naive industry got beaten up by its regulator, but I think, as you were saying, the industry seems to have wised up big time, it's got much more mature about it, and the output of which is, particularly in the adult sector, where we have a lot of technology at the moment deployed to automate the discovery of this stuff, the adult sector, from an affiliate perspective, is squeaky clean. And that's the sector that you would have expected historically to be problematic. Bart, what's your, you've launched in the UK, PlayPay, you buy your own traffic, you buy direct traffic only. What's your risk appetite to move towards blind networks?
Yeah, I would love to talk about the follow-up, cleaning up the mess, make a good plan with Marco, one of his colleagues, set that first, and when that's ready, and I can understand you're not going to give me any certainties, but at least it makes me a little bit more secure. That it might definitely be an option to start slowly and try a little bit more.
I think that Bart would apply to yourself and anybody else in the room. If it's about starting slowly and working on a plan, then we'd be happy to sit with people individually or kind of collectively in some, where it's appropriate to do that. And you're right, it's not going to give you absolute certainty, but I think it will give you a great deal more certainty than potentially you had 18 months ago, or even just as you're thinking about getting back into it. Ultimately, the other comment that I'd make is what I've heard from Eric and Jonny and Brian over there. It's almost the classic example of what we want from outcomes-based regulation, that obviously you want to kind of like draw clear lines, but obviously as well, there's more than one way of achieving the same objective. And we would want a system that allowed people to do that.
Further comments from the field, from the audience? What's people's risk appetite currently in the UK? Can we have somebody perhaps who's not currently using blind networks in the UK? Can we have some comments on that?
I think there's business requirements where we need to go back into the market, because we've had 15 months, 16 months of changing our businesses, increasing our costs hugely to self-regulate to a certain extent. That if we don't go out there and start buying traffic, then the businesses just won't function. Just not sustainable. But if we do it the right, safe way, then we've got opportunity to start doing this. We shouldn't be regulating our business. We should be responsible for what we do, but there's got to be an understanding that as much best practice we put in place, somebody comes along and tweaks that, does something, mugs us, and then we get slammed by the regulator then as well. It's like, oh, look what we've done for the last 15, 16 months to get to this place, and all of a sudden something, over an hour, 2 hours a day, whatever, just messes up everything. It's like, there's got to be a fair approach for us to take, for us to be, as promoters, to be confident to go back out into the market, start, spending the money and generating more business for ourselves, but also being responsible as well.
I was just wondering whether, from TechLab, you're prepared to make comments. So you're not currently in the UK. What does the UK look like compared to your other markets? Does the UK look scary? Does it look?
Yeah, it's probably too early for us to say something. This will be that we start to
Yeah.
If I have to be honest, we're expecting a little bit more. I mean, it's regulated, but it's not absolutely clear yet.
No.
It has to be a little bit more clear. Because in some other countries that you expect that they are less regulated, they are, but they are a little bit more.
Okay.
This is the first sensation we have.
It's so often that demand. I remember during the development of the 12th codes, there was do people want prescriptive regulation or do they want principles-based regulation? And for a lot of people entering a market, a prescriptive code of practice is actually quite convenient because it's in black and white what you can and can't do. The reality of the UK is it's principles-based, which has upsides, but it also has downsides. And the downsides of the UK is it's not black, white, good, bad. As you're hearing today, there are no certainties in the UK. It's a matter of understanding the flow, the current in the sea. And that takes a bit of time and experience. Any other comments from people who are not currently using blind networks in the UK, but perhaps are using blind networks elsewhere?
Jeremy, if I could just add in that affiliate marketing isn't on or off, I'm doing it or not. There's a very, very
Trades
wide
off,
range
yes.
of it. You can contract with networks who only have relationships with specific websites.
Indeed.
They don't buy affiliate traffic from other affiliates. You can create your own banners and say you can only use my banners. You can have them create banners, but you approve it. So there's many, many, many different techniques.
I ought to really when I've been using the word affiliate networks, I mean blind affiliate networks.
Okay,
And I
but-
appreciate
but-
there's flavours of blind.
Yeah, but even within blind, you can be buying
Yes,
buying
indeed.
redirects, you could be
Indeed.
buying pre-lenders, you can, there's lots of things. So I think some things are more risky than others. If you're going to take the more risky ones, just realize that you've got to have a very sharp, on-the-ball compliance department who is able to provide phenomenal amounts of information to PhonePay Plus to assuage any concerns that they might have had that the criminals have profited by it, you've profited by it, etc., and that you weren't your eye on the ball. But there are lesser forms of affiliate marketing, even on blind networks, where there's much less risk of something to happen, and it would be far easier to prove that you caught it quickly. So again, if it was a non-blind network, because you do have non-blind affiliate networks, then you know what the sites are that they're advertising on,
Yes.
and you have a third party monitor them, then it's very unlikely anything's going to happen.
Indeed.
And if you did, you could say, look, this is every single day.
Indeed.
We're going to all 20 sites. We caught this thing. So it's a dial. It's not an on-off.
No, it feels a bit like when you make an investment decision, your advisor will ask you what risk profile you're prepared to have. And it feels a bit like that topic. So it feels like the answer is, if you want, whilst it's not yet proven as to what the regulator will do, it sounds though a cautious, set the dial to caution.
Yeah,
See what happens. Turn it up a bit, see what happens. Turn it up a bit more, whoops, PhonePay Plus is getting excited, turn it back down again. That's what it's feeling like. It doesn't feel like a on, off, in, out. It feels like gently turning taps up.
I would even go this way. Once you turn it up, when something happens, you now have a message you have to clean up.
Indeed.
And it's going to take a phenomenal amount of effort. We had this one client, I won't go into the details, and it was a heinous form of dodgy affiliate marketing. It was caught within hours. Still endless meetings.
Yeah.
We're getting a section 4.2.3 letter from PPP about it when I get back. And so there's just a lot of work to
Yep.
sort this thing out.
Yeah. So even if it doesn't go to a track 2, you still...
Well, exactly. So the goal now
follow
is so that it doesn't turn into a track 2 or
Yep.
even a track 1. But the point is that it was a pretty heinous problem. And the dial was set up. So it's not like you can turn the dial up, oh, PPP seems to be getting a little bit too much attention, let's turn it down. What happens is you turn the dial up, and then,
It's like an
boom,
explosion.
you now have 6 months worth of work to do to
Yep.
clean this mess up.
Yeah. We get a lot of analogies here. So we talk about an oil tanker spillage after mixing metaphors. Right, we've got another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that Eric raised there. Do you think there in the future is a way to make cleaning up the mess a little bit easier, smaller? Do you think
this
it
was
will
actually,
evolve?
I was going to add that at the moment, because people are sort of stepping back in, and obviously this is really the first time we've seen this sort of thing since the emergency procedures. So I think invariably we need to get, and we will get, sort of better and more efficient, I guess is probably, at how we deal with these things and what information we expect. Because I think there can be a temptation, and this is just among colleagues, where people are perhaps used to doing things as part of a process for investigating anything. And they will maybe ask for information that isn't so relevant, or they won't ask the question that if they ask that, it would save you 2-3 weeks worth of work. Now, invariably, we can get better at that, and we will do.
Is that a priority for PhonePay at the moment?
I think it has to be a priority to get better at, because it doesn't do us any favours either.
No, it's dragging your resources.
This is exactly it. It drains our resources as well to do this. So,
Well, maybe we need a separate session between industry and regulator, which is efficient cleaning up the mess. What process? Because I do think some of the guys on your side don't really understand quite yet. I think there's an education journey you're going to have to take back in to make sure they understand the type of things that need to be done. Cleaning up a post-affiliate mess is different from a standard investigation, which needs A, B, C, D, F, G. So maybe that's something we can get done.
I think something else that, just from speaking to people last night as well, that we're all looking for is just consistency as well of application of rules, and there doesn't seem to be that at the moment. I suppose there's over to you, Mark, again. Is there anything that PhonePay are doing really to kind of make rules consistent and application of rules consistent? Because, you know, you can get compliance advice from person A and then it just gets overruled by person B, you know, a month later or something like that. And as industry, it's very difficult to know where you stand in those instances.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I can only broadly say that we really, we would want compliance advice to be consistent. We wouldn't want a situation where things are being overridden. And I think from my point of view, we are learning about this as well. So just as you guys are kind of going into the water and seeing how this happens, we are learning, if you like, as the lifeguard, to see where the danger signs are. Now, as we do that, there is going to be potentially a little bit more kind of asked for in terms of looking at complaints. But we will get better at this. And of course, what we want to do is apply things consistently. We don't want to be giving different messages to different people.
But this kind of work is nothing to do with consumer complaints, because this stuff, as you discovered, the thing you were a victim of, is 2 hours. You've got a few hours. It's not going to be the average 45 days of there aren't 45 days worth of serious problems in this business. There might be 4 hours of serious harm in this business, but it doesn't last long enough for it to come onto your radar.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I will add that we still do get some significant numbers of complaints, but nothing, not where we were last year.
No.
But you're right, it can be discovered through sources of monitoring, and it can even be discovered, of course, when somebody comes to us and says, look, we had 4 hours of this, we found it, what do we now do to clear it up?
Indeed.
I think as we go forward, we're going to want to deal with all of those in the way in which they deserve, if that makes sense. If people are coming to you, and there's a genuine effort, it's not about, I made my money and now I can report it. I think we want to help that get cleaned up and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yep, understood.